Could the killer be a 7 to 8 foot tall person from a Korean background who's into documentaries about 1950s architecture?
We don't have any evidence that points to that in particular.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today, I have Sujewa Ekanayake. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Oh, thank
Close
God.
enough. Close enough for U.S. business. Maybe not
Yeah,
close enough for Sri Lanka business.
close enough for the Yanks. Yeah. Uh,
Not for America.
yeah. So today, Sujiwa and I have been talking for a while, and um, he told me about this movie that he made called Werewolf Ninja Philosopher. And first off, the title caught my attention. I'm like, what the hell is Werewolf Ninja Philosopher? Did he just discover that name on a Scrabble board? Um, and then I watched it, and I remember before I even watched it, you said to me, "Don't skip through the movie." I
Right.
just thought that was kind of a weird thing to request. So, like, why would I watch someone's movie and then skip through it?
Some do it.
So, yeah, but uh, as someone who enjoys slower moving films, I didn't do it, and I quite enjoyed it. I listened to Ian Simmons' podcast that he did with David Foley. And we do podcasting together as well. Ian and I, we do a show called What If He Doesn't Survive, and it's about the Mandalorian. And Ian's been a frequent guest host on my show, and David's kind of like my Star Wars guy.
Yeah.
And
I think David introduced Werewolf Ninja Philosopher to Ian last year because I emailed David and I didn't even know about Ian. And David turned Ian on to Werewolf. Now you're on it, so I'm building up my million fans in Chicago slowly. I think we're up to number 10 now.
yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I mean, so I guess in a nutshell, I literally have the movie also running in the background for my second viewing
Oh,
as
good.
I'm talking about it because the thing that really caught my attention with this film is it's a lot like how Andy Warhol would show his movies, where you'd go to a party, people would have their drinks and whatever other drugs they were doing, people were doing blow in the bathroom, whatever. And the movie would go on in the background and people kind of notice it here and there. And this is kind of like one of those kind of films where I'm not saying it should be ignored. I don't want to take it that way, but it's one of those movies where it's more of an artistic experience. It's kind of like if you watch like a painting on the wall and you kind of examine what's in that painting. It's sort of there. It's not meant to be like an Avengers or like sort of like it is an indie film. It's underground indie. And underground indie films are movies that are basically made on like no budget, and they're completely derived from a sort of it likes to shatter the rules of what a narrative structure should be. You don't have your beginning, middle, and an end. You kind of just the movie is what it is, and either you're gonna like it or you're not gonna like it. And if you don't, maybe there's good reasons, but also maybe you check it out again, you might like it again. There's a great quote from Stanley Kubrick where he said, you never really understand a movie if you just see it once. You got to see it more than once. Um, but having said that, where did you come up with this idea for this film? Uh, I guess I'll start from there because I'll have some more questions as the interview kind of goes on.
Yeah. About the type of movie, it's more of a slow cinema movie where people who are not used to it, if they spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, they'll get into it. I showed the movie at theaters in two in New York, one Facets in Chicago, and people who haven't seen any movies like this one, after a while got into it, and then they were really happy with it. It does have a plot, does have a structure, but it has an unusual aspect, which is
Mm-hmm.
the werewolf walking around New York City at night and thinking and working. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's much more planned out than Andy Warhol movie. It's more towards like an early Jim Jarmusch movie like Stranger Than Paradise or Love Diaz type slow cinema movie. I got the idea for the movie. I think I was working on Matt Solar Sites' project. Whatchamacallit, Space Rabbit. You know Matt, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From
Sure do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You work at
I work
Ebert.
at Ebert Digital. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you're you know Matt. Anyway, I was helping him make a show called Space Rabbit that still is not done, but I'm sure we'll get to it eventually after the
Mm.
pandemics and other emergencies. I'm
Yeah.
sure he'll get to it. Anyway, I saw some maybe a lion puppet. I was like, oh, that could be a werewolf. And
Mm.
then I made a movie called Date Number One that had a ninja in it who goes on a blind date.
Okay. I
You need
see a
to see
pattern
that.
here.
Yeah, you need to see that. That's on Vimeo. I'll send you a review link later from 2006. That's when we got
Wow.
finished.
God, I was so
Much
young back
more of a
then.
regular mainstream type movie.
Mm.
And then Philosopher, I did a detective comedy called Breakthrough Weekend in 2014 that got done, and it had a philosopher detective. So I combined all those elements, and I wanted to make something simple, but wanted to pay attention to cinematography, fun, unusual, and I'm a big fan of the movie Uncle Bunmi, who can recall his past lives. So I
Mm.
wanted to make something crazy, just completely outside the norm, and
Mm.
uh, and we shot it in a short period of time. The cast and crew did an awesome job. Everyone is a star. Art Shrintwari, the werewolf, Christine Dwyer, Aaliyah Luray, who's in my next film, the one that I'm about to shoot, Pamela Rummel, I think, and
Mm.
Rachel Dixon. She played the NYPD officer, the Celebrity Crimes Unit supervisor. Were you able to watch the whole movie and follow the plot and the dialogue?
Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah, unlike Ian, I didn't skip any of
No,
it.
Ian watched it, but
No,
eventually,
he
yeah,
rewatched it though.
yeah, and then, but he
Just
did get,
busting his balls. Yeah.
yeah, me too. It's all right. Yeah, he did get some of the ideas in the movie, and he really got into it. He says he's the biggest fan of the movie, and he probably is.
Yeah. Well, Ian's interesting because he sees stuff in movies that nobody else sees.
Right.
And as someone who works in film, I see a lot of things that, maybe some other critics haven't seen. I'm sort of like a reverse Godard where I started with movies, became a critic, and I also make movies at the same time while still being a critic. Um, but, the thing I liked about it is it does have a narrative structure, but it seems to have fun with the convenience of a narrative structure,
Mm-hmm.
where things just kind of randomly happen, and I don't want to give too much away, but sort of like when you find out who the killer is in the end, there's this moment where the killer's like, "Oh no, you found out I'm the killer." She says it right in front of another cop, and I'm like, "Okay," but the movie knows it's doing that. The movie knows, hey, this is a movie. You're supposed to take it with a grain of salt. Um, yeah, there's a lot of there's this cop who keeps talking about a pet llama or something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
and that
A
yeah, that
neighbor
just
llama.
yeah, it just reminds me of, like, maybe this is an easy go-to for any critic, but it reminds me of like David Lynch when he just randomly brings up animals for no reason,
Mm-hmm.
and you just kind of go with it. And I think the more you watch it, the more you understand. When it comes to the walking sequences, first off, I get that. Did you put that shutter speed in camera, or was that done in post?
That was done in post. I just shot it
Yeah.
normally. It was
Okay.
HD 24p,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, 1080p, and then in post I slowed it down.
Yeah. And was that just sort of to capture the methodical process of his head of trying to, because usually when you walk through the streets, you're trying to just figure out what your case is, what's going on in your head, even if you're not a cop. I'm guessing that was sort of the philosophical aspect of the I'm trying not to say American Werewolf, of the Werewolf Ninja Philosopher.
Philosopher. Well, I initially the plan was not to have so many walking shots, but I really liked the walking shots. There was another strategy. There was like 6 different strategies for the movie. Then, because of actor schedules, certain things could not be shot. Then I could have still had like a 70-minute movie without all the walking shots. I mean, I could have cut things differently. Instead of doing just master shots, I could have done, just like a regular, stretch out the scenes.
Uh,
But ultimately, I really liked the walking shots, so I kind of rearranged the movie all around it. In the next movie, which is more mainstream, which is called The Secret Society for Slow Romance, uh, I used the sort of the poetic um, shots of the city in a way that makes more sense to people, that I think people will be less alienated by. They're not as long. They're more in between scenes. But Werewolf, ultimately, I'm like, it's a very unusual character, very unusual movie. Let's make it as weird as possible, and leave it at that as an interesting work of art. It's definitely a creative experience to watch it.
hmm. What did you like so much about the walking shots where you wanted to structure the whole movie around it?
Oh, it looked good. The nighttime New York at night. Yeah, I liked the way the shots looked. So I
Huh.
mean, film is a visual medium, so I was like, yeah, let's make the visual the main component, not the narrative. I mean,
Mm.
so modern film is either like television, where it's
Mhm.
really, you know, tight shots and people talking from start to finish, or the other extreme is slow cinema, where it's you know Bellatar doing an 8-hour movie, showing everything really slowly. So
Mm.
this is somewhere in the middle, but still more towards slow cinema side.
No, that makes sense. Because well, what do you think of like the current state of cinema today? Not the whole pandemic thing, but like how movies are made. Because
Mhm.
this seems to be sort of like the complete opposite of those.
Yeah, well, this is not made in a Hollywood style. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people, because Hollywood was so successful for so long, a lot of people forgot that there are lots of other ways to make movies. Tons of other movies have been made outside of Hollywood since
Mm.
the start of filmmaking, both in the US and worldwide. So everyone kind of, up till the pandemic, everyone kind of most people, not us, but most people in the regular world were like, yeah, Hollywood movies are the thing, and there's some documentaries, and there's nothing else. But
Yeah.
yeah, movies can be made in tons of different ways. Warhol is one example. Chantal Ackerman is one example. Jonas Mekas is one example. Yeah, you could make a movie. I mean, it's just like painting or making music now. You're
Mm.
especially with Hollywood out of the picture at the moment, it's becoming clear to a lot of people you could really make a movie in completely different ways. You can shoot it all on Skype. You could use found
Mhm.
footage. You can use found footage. Yeah, I'm open. I think people should find ways that work the best for them, for their budgets, for their personalities, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. So the process to this movie. Now, this was shot what, like 2 years ago or something like that?
Yeah, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Amanda, never mind. Hold on one second.
No problem.
There was too much noise happening in one part of the apartment.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Good, good, good. I had to clear that out. Anyway, this was shot in 2018.
Mm.
The final stuff. I mean, this movie has a long history. I tried it with other actors with different makeup. I mean, some things were shot in 2017, early 2018, and ultimately with Arch Tawari, the final pickup stuff was shot in 2018, and then that's how the movie got finished.
Mm.
Got finished in October 2018.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then it's kind of been bouncing around now. Now it's free on YouTube and You can literally just type in Ninja Werewolf Philosopher,
Werewolf Ninja Philosopher,
and
YouTube. Yeah.
and it'll pop right up.
Also,
Yes, it's very easy to kind of hit the SEO with something like that.
yeah, and you can add a link to your podcast.
Well, of course. So how come as I'm watching this now in the background, everyone seems to be drawn to this guy? This like right away, like every girl in this film is like, "Hey, how you doing? Let's have sex." What was the
He's
reason behind that?
oh, he's like a superstar in New York, and it's like if a superhero or a major athlete or like a Tom Cruise type was walking around,
Mm.
a lot of ladies would respond in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
He's not a usual person. I mean, there's a backstory to the character. In the future, I would like to do a series with Art Shriyan and this character, something like an X-Files. Maybe Netflix or Amazon will pay for it. Let's see.
Aha.
But kind of paced, and shot like the later seasons of X-Files, where we
Hmm.
talk about his backstory, how he became the werewolf with better makeup. He saved New York from an attack by a ninja organization, so he's a local celebrity.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons ladies are attracted to him, and he's just a good-looking, you know, charming, charismatic, low-key werewolf ninja philosopher, the only
Yeah.
one.
Well, as someone who's a philosopher, and especially if you study martial arts, you know that you don't really attack anyone unless it's self-defense, you know.
That's right.
Yeah, so you don't want to just go around and beat the shit out of guys. Some guys try to join martial arts classes who are psychos and do that. This
Hmm.
guy isn't one of them. He combines the physical and the mental together. Um, so what was the decision to make it black and white? Was it shot in black and white, or did you kind of just throw in a black and white filter afterwards?
No, it was shot on color video.
Mm-hmm.
Then I took when editing, I took a look at in black and white, some scenes in black and white. And the black and white is a call back to film noir because
Mm-hmm.
it's a detective movie and there are some film noir aspects to it. Also, it looked better in black and white, and the makeup especially looked better in black and white. So,
With the little
so we went with
painted
black and white.
nose and yeah. Yeah, I can tell because there's a lot of framing here, a lot of scenes where, as you said, a lot of movies are shot with tight shots. You have your OTSs mixed in with your wides, and this one's much more like, no, the camera's going to stay here, and it's just going to be the whole scene is going to play out in this wide shot,
Hmm.
and that's it. And it really kind of capitalizes on sort of like the whole underground indie sort of look to it. What was the intention behind that sort of framing?
That's a way of doing movies. Did you see Stranger Than Paradise or
Nope.
Done by Law?
No, no. See, I'm still when it comes to underground cinema, I'm not as educated
Okay.
as some people are.
No,
So this
yeah,
is sort
but
of my introduction to it in a sort of way.
good, good.
I've been kind of brushing up more on my history of cinema a lot.
Right. You know Jim Jarmusch, right? Famous
Oh, of
filmmaker.
course, yeah.
So Stranger Than Paradise was his breakthrough movie in 1984.
Mm.
Kind of launched the new era of indie films that cross over into Hollywood. And he shot. If you just find the movie and watch it, it's on Amazon. It's on Criterion. Everything is shot in wides, and
Mm.
for that kind of story, it works really well. And also, Aki Kaurismäki does that. Woody Allen does it a little bit. Um, yeah, shooting everything wide is one way to tell a story. It maybe a lot of that, maybe more wide shots were used back in the day in the early days of filmmaking. It makes people, it kind of relax, it kind of doesn't force people to pay attention to one certain thing in the frame. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can watch the entire scene. You can focus in on a certain aspect, or you can take in the whole thing. Yeah, it's just a
Mm-hmm.
different way of telling a story. And from a filmmaking perspective, it's easier than doing the wide master close-up coverage.
Yeah. Yeah, it does remind me a little bit of sort of uh, the mumblecore sort of movement in a way, and a little bit of the rise of sort of the more documentary-esque films. There was a term for it, but I'm blanking out on it because I'm
Uh,
stupid.
uh,
But like Lars von Trier was a big
yeah,
proponent of it.
Dogma 95.
Dogma 95, yeah.
Yeah, no. Once you see Jarmusch movies, you'll see. Check out Strangers in Paradise and Mystery Train. He uses
Mm,
mostly wide shots and some medium shots to great effect, and
yeah.
it is an interesting way to tell a story because then you're kind of like watching a play a little bit. There's a distance between you and the action that's happening. It's not like a Scorsese movie where he's cutting, all the time to
Yeah.
things to show, make sure you pay attention to it, right? This is
Hmm.
more of a laid back way to take in the movie. Yeah, this kind of style is very common in some foreign film, some underground film, some indie film. Even Slacker kind of does that. Did you see Slacker?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what I was thinking of when I
Yeah,
saw this immediately with Slacker, actually,
yeah,
because that movie was just a lot of scenes where the camera would just sort of stay still and it would just be people talking about whatever. Like there wasn't much of a like this one intentionally doesn't have a plot structure, but we still know what the plot is. There's
right.
someone going around killing indie filmmakers. Why is he killing them? And why specifically indie filmmakers?
Right.
I'm guessing that has something to do with standard audiences don't care about independent cinema and they're killing it by constantly consuming Marvel and all that other stuff. I could
Could
be
be,
wrong.
could be.
Yeah.
I just thought that it would be funny to have a New York where the famous people are the art underground filmmakers. That
Ah.
some of them getting killed would launch a special unit of the NYPD to investigate.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, and
It's
this guy,
sort of a reverse of the regular world where Hollywood filmmakers are the famous ones and underground filmmakers are barely acknowledged.
yeah, that reminds me of a movie I actually covered with a filmmaker way back, and she had this whole sort of unique vision for her film. It was sort of like in this alternate universe where uh, sort of like the LGBTQ community was just seen as like the normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything had this project called Glam to it,
Mm-hmm.
and everything was sort of gay centered, and it
Mm-hmm.
was by this transgender director. Their name is Molly Hewitt,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's a lot like where I love movies where filmmakers kind of create their own entire world. It's not something that's just completely grounded in our world. Like one thing that I always found that was I love the like as someone who loves Christopher Nolan and loves like all the Dark Knight movies, he tries to take something that's so uh, absurd and ground it in reality, which can tonally be. Uh, you have scenes where people are supposed to take stuff seriously, masks and these goofy costumes, and they're acting like everything's normal. And it's like, why not just make the entire world different,
Mm-hmm.
and not try to ground it here? And here you're making something where it's not exactly grounded in reality, it's grounded in its reality,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like, in a way, I don't know, like maybe you were trying to find something that you were discovering sort of your own unique sort of world you'd like to live in, that I'd like to live in as well, where uh
Mm-hmm.
independent filmmakers are more recognized, and I
Right.
and I and I pay more attention to, because I'll be honest, after this, I'm probably going to see if my copy of Bill and Ted is available,
Right.
rather than seeing a Jim Jarmusch movie.
Right.
Uh, yeah, but
Well, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, but yeah, a lot of film critics are not aware of underground movies, independent stuff, because Hollywood takes up so much of people's time with them releasing a number of movies every week. Usually, you don't really have time to go study the back catalog of Jim Jarmusch, uh,
Mm-hmm.
or all the movies by Jonas Mekas. He made dozens of movies, and he shot every day using film camera and then a video camera later in life, and he's made like 1 year in 2007. He released one short film a day for the whole year.
Mm.
So
Wow.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so I was imagining just a different world for the werewolf. I'm
Yeah.
fine with I'm fine with the regular world. I live in Brooklyn, it's great. Uh,
Well, Brooklyn must feel like a very different world right now. You know.
well, it's back to normal now.
Mm.
But
Oh. Oh.
but living in
Oh.
Brooklyn for the last 10 years,
Yeah.
it's a great place to live. It's you pretty much. I mean, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, New York City, pretty much any kind of thing you're into, there's like 1,000 people who are into it.
Yeah. So how did you find this cast? Are they a bunch of friends of yours, or are
No,
these people who are
I did
well-known stage actors that we don't know about, or underground actors?
no, I did I think a backstage casting call, but the
Hmm.
lead actor I found through Facebook. I met him, interviewed him, talked for a couple hours, figured out he could do it, and then I brought in the other actors.
Ah, okay, yeah. And it's interesting. You really seem to embrace uh the world of digital, the new era of filmmaking. Like you said earlier, a lot of people are making movies very differently now, especially amongst this pandemic. People
Hmm.
are kind of making films in their own sort of way. Could you tell me a little bit about what the process was like for you to shoot this film, kind of like on a camera that you've been suggesting to me a lot? It was the what was it? The Canon XC10.
Yeah,
Uh,
Canon XA10.
uh
No. XA11.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that thing shoots 4K, right?
No. This is
Ah,
1080p. So what most people don't understand, unless you're a DP, is that the tech available now on iPhones, on DSLR cameras, on camcorders, on cinema cameras, they can all produce acceptable images for
mm-hmm.
movie theaters and the web.
Yeah.
So your specific project and limitations and preferences will determine what camera you end up using. Steven Soderbergh shoots Netflix movies
Yeah.
on iPhones now, like iPhone 7, which is what I'm talking to you on right now,
Mm-hmm.
which almost anyone can get.
Yeah.
And You can shoot on 1080p. You can shoot on 4K, 6K. You can shoot on $20,000 cinema cameras, but in the end, it's all video content that outside of film theaters and film festivals, it just becomes video content that people consume at home on a screen or on a large screen or on a laptop, and quite
Mm-hmm.
often on cell phones. So this is a great time to make films. You're not, unlike the 90s or even early 2000s, you're
Mm.
not limited by technology anymore. The crew for Werewolf Ninja Philosopher was just two people. I directed and shot, and we had a sound person.
I've been making movies like that recently as well,
Mm-hmm.
where I just have a DP, it's me, the director, and it's a sound guy, and we'd rig the lights ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We do everything ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
I think now with the way movies are kind of changing, we have to be precautious on how we make films because of this epidemic.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we're going to see a much larger rise of these kind of films, these filmmakers who are being ignored. How do you think the path for them is going to be?
I think one thing filmmakers have to embrace that we have been lazy about and have not embraced is we have to do the epic amount of promotional work that
Yeah.
Hollywood typically does for their movies. So far, underground filmmakers have stayed underground. Indie filmmakers who crossed over did so by selling their work to Hollywood, and Hollywood promoting the movies and creating brand names out of some filmmakers. But now, since it's so easy to make movies, filmmakers should put the time into marketing themselves, promoting the movie for a long period of time. So I'm going to try that on my next movie. I have a plan to promote it for 1 year,
Mm.
advertise it to millions of people using affordable advertising, and then I'm going to do like 365, 700 different, uh, social media posts, a couple a day with different art, and
Mm.
tried to get on hundreds of podcasts.
Mm.
So that kind of like super well developed marketing and promotion is the thing to take from Hollywood, not
Yeah.
their exclusionary casting or their ridiculous stories or robots fighting 24/7. But
Yeah.
yeah, keep the stories indie, keep the casting diverse, but use and collaborate with them or just imitate their promotional thing. That's all it is. That's all it is. If you want to make a name for yourself as a filmmaker, you just have to let millions of people know that you exist. Out of that, fraction of the people will become your fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we have the tools and the technology now to do it.
Mhm.
You don't need to throw a bunch of money at somebody to promote your film. You
Mhm.
have those resources. I'm wondering if those resources can get lost amongst the clout of everyone else producing their films. Like, how do you make yours stand out? Like, if for someone who wants to do that, for instance, what advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, there's no safe answer at any level of filmmaking for
Mm,
this because Hollywood studios with unlimited money relatively mess up on this all the time, right? Some
mm-hmm,
movies stick, some come out and never are heard from. I think one, you have to make sure you reach a lot of people who may be interested in your in your movie, like just the way that I found you and
mm-hmm.
David and Ian. You have to figure out who are the podcasters, writers, critics, media sites that might like your movie,
Yeah.
who may have people who like that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So someone will listen to this podcast, one of your regular readers who know nothing about anything that I'm talking about, but they might check out a Werewolf and go, oh, this is a weird ass movie, but I like it. So when I come out with another movie and they're like, oh, I know that guy's name from somewhere, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
check it out. So if you want 100,000 fans, you have to reach 10 million people in the not the production in the demographic that might be into your movies.
Yeah, that's a very good point because whenever I throw up anything online, I always cast an enormous net. Uh, where I'll have the thing reach out to like 1 million people, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
have maybe like 1,000 respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually pay attention to it. And it's just like a comedian making material. You tell a bunch of jokes that bomb, but slowly you collect the peanuts from
Right.
the jokes that work. And just like a filmmaker, you have a lot of bad ideas, but then you have some good ones, and you take the little good ones and you make a film from it. Because you never know what a movie's going to be until you show it to someone and they go, well, this doesn't work. And you got to take the good ideas from the bad. So
Mm-hmm.
really, I mean, as someone like me who's being introduced to underground cinema, I would ask the audience to take that ride with me
Mm-hmm.
and go, well, let's check out some of these movies that are recommended, some of these directors. Certainly Jim Jarmusch is,
Mm-hmm.
like your go-to instant one to check out immediately, or you could check out some of the early works of Richard Linklater
Yeah.
and things of that nature, and see if it's for you. And even if it's not for you, there's nothing wrong with that. You can
Right.
enjoy what you enjoy. We're not one of those shows that goes around and likes to give people shit for not liking something specific and saying they have no taste. If you only
Mm-hmm.
like Transformers, you can only like Transformers. That's totally fine. Um, so now, tell me a little bit about your new film that you're making.
And
Uh,
sure. And one thing about marketing and distribution, just like you can hire a cinematographer because a given filmmaker cinematography skills may not be great. Yeah, feel free to hire experts for
mhm.
marketing and distribution. Just
Yeah,
make sure they're doing what you want them to do. Just tell them what the goals are, and then let them provide a strategy. Because you don't
yeah.
really, you can't really be a filmmaker who does everything. You can do some
Mm-mm.
things well, and other things you should farm out. And there's a lot of talent available now, especially with the weird economy we have now. That you could probably get amazing marketing people who are just looking for work.
Yeah, set aside part of your budget for that, but not the entirely your budget. And again, like people always think. Here's one thing that annoys me, just to kind of veer off on a random topic.
Hmm.
Everyone always thinks when they buy stuff for a movie, they got to get like the newest, best camera.
Hmm.
And even if you're doing freelance videos, people want to go, well, does it have these specific specs? If it doesn't have this, I don't want to shoot on that. And that's ridiculous. Anyone can make a movie on anything. You can make something on a cell phone. I was shooting something on my job on my cell phone until I get new gear. And they're like, you're
Hmm.
shooting on a cell phone? I'm like, yeah, the image quality is great on these.
Right.
You
It's
know?
2020.
Yeah. It's like
One
you're
thing I
not
would
going to know the
say,
difference, like
right?
once you watch it.
Yeah, the end user will not know the difference.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say, yeah, no, have a separate budget. You're gonna spend more money on an indie movie. You're gonna spend more money on distribution. If you're handling the distribution yourself and you're trying to
Hmm.
do it right. Just like in
Yeah.
Hollywood, they might spend 50 million on making the movie, but they may spend 150 million on releasing the movie
Yeah.
because there's a lot of work to get done. Even on an one person team, you have to reach out to hundreds of critics. You have to advertise, you have to follow up. There's a lot to do. Yeah, raise and or spend a separate budget for the distribution. I mean, you could do it over a number of months, right? So if you're spending $20,000 over 1 year or 2 years, that becomes doable, as
Mm.
opposed to just spending $20,000 in 1 month.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the question
Um,
about
so
the new movie,
the
yeah,
Secret Society of Slow Romance, right? Or is it just
the
called
Secret
Slow
Society
Romance?
for Slow Romance.
Yeah.
Or slow romance for short.
Yes.
This is like the most minimalist of film productions as far as feature
Mm.
films go. I play the lead actor, and I am directing, and I'm shooting. So
Wow.
when the camera's on my character, uh, actually my character is the out of the two characters, mine's the secondary character. The lead character is her name is Allison, played
Mm.
by Aaliyah Lorray, who played the girlfriend in the
Mm-hmm.
Werewolf movie.
Mm-hmm.
So and I've tested this out already, and it works pretty well. When I'm acting, the camera will be on a tripod for
Mm-hmm.
the over-the-shoulder shots for me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then when we need to show Leah, I'll be shooting, and then we'll have some tripod over the shoulder over me. So basically, it's an underground filmmaker, Aaliyah's character, and an indie filmmaker who's much more successful, my character Renee. During the pandemic in New York, they meet up, to exchange some gear, and then they start talking, and they decide to go on some dates because
Mm.
the Allison character is bored, and the she can't see anyone because of the shutdowns, blah blah blah,
Mm.
and they're interested in each other. So they go on several dates, and other than the romantic whatever stuff, they also talk about possible ways to improve the world, and they figure out through using a secret society type arrangement how to they think they can end poverty in the world, and this involves the use of art movies and underground movies also. So it's very complicated,
Mm.
but it'll take the audience step by step, and by the end of the movie they'll be pleasantly entertained and surprised. So it's more like a a different take on My Dinner with Andre or Before Sunrise.
Mm. And I know you're making this movie during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that you and your actors have tested each other multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
How are you making this film aside from the testing and all that? Like, is it just you and one other person, and then you just go in a public area and film, or in
No,
your?
no. There's two sets,
Oh,
and
okay.
two sets, two actors, and the crew includes. I am the crew, so only two people on set at any given time, and both of us are tested.
How do you get
We
your
set,
sound?
we can set it up. We can set up a stand with the mic.
Yeah, like you put it on a C stand and
Yeah,
then just rig it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because the anything that is not yeah, and because a lot of the scenes are just two people talking while they're having dinner, so they're not going to be
Mm.
moving around all that much.
Oh, okay.
So
Is this a
when it's
feature
shot,
length?
it's a feature, yeah. When
Yeah.
it's Have you seen My Dinner with Andre?
No.
You got to watch that. Have you seen Before Sunrise?
No.
You got to watch that. Richard Linklater, famous movie. It was so
Oh
good.
wait,
They made
before sunrise you said? I'm sorry,
before,
you broke up. You
before
said
Sunrise.
before sunrise?
Yeah,
Yes, I have seen before sunrise. Yes.
good,
So I
good.
see exactly what you're going for. I see exactly what you're going for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, Before Sunrise did just the purely romantic two people talking, really well. So
Yeah.
I'm building on that and uh, introducing a secret society save the world element to it.
Mm.
Also, a lot of underground film and indie film talk. Like a lot of the
Hmm.
people I mentioned in this discussion will be talked about
Yeah.
in the movie.
People who are talked about that dumb doesn't know.
Well, I mean, it's
I'm kidding.
okay. It'll be
Yeah.
an introduction to many people. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
no one knows everything. All of us at one point get
Yeah.
introduced to things one way or
Exactly.
another.
And that's the idea of this. Exactly. Yeah. Don't worry. I am very self-deprecating in my humor.
Good, good.
Yeah.
No, and it's a comedy. It's a dialogue-driven comedy. I think it'll be much more accessible than Werewolf Ninja Philosopher. Also, you know how I showed New York a lot in Werewolf? I did the same thing in this movie. They go on like 9 different dates, having dinner at one of their places because there's no place to go to because it's COVID, right? Everything's
Hmm.
shut down. And in between, we show like great scenes of New York, and so it's just not. And then we show them walking around, so it's just not them hanging out in someone's house for the entire movie.
Yeah. That,
But I
that
worked on the
sounds
script
great.
for about a year, and I made it interesting and funny. I think it'll be kind of like a really good podcast episode where two interesting people are talking about interesting things for like an hour and a half.
And you could do it in a dinner setting.
Yeah, and it's like a bunch of dates. There's
Mm,
some romance stuff, people hooking up, and
yeah.
lots of comedy related to romance, and also aspects of modern romance, like sexting,
Hmm.
sending sending photos to people of body parts. That
Mm.
as an
Oh, yeah, okay.
as an ongoing thread.
Pulling up Brett Favre, yeah.
Yeah, I guess. What did he do?
He sent a dick pic to like a journalist,
Oh no, no, I don't
but
do
not
that.
like that. It would be
Yeah, yeah.
mutual, mutual dick pics.
No, I mean,
Right.
right now, since people can't actually meet in person,
Yeah,
a lot of stuff is happening like that where, you know,
yeah.
people ask each other to send photos and, sort of, kind of, you know, phone sex in a way happens uh,
Well, yeah.
using the technology that's available.
I
So,
think we've all been there. We've
yeah,
all done it.
yeah, I mean, penis photos and other body part photos are
Yes,
just
yes.
a normal part of modern dating. So we
Yeah.
we talk about that and have a lot of fun with it, with the idea.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And when is the movie gonna be? Do you think you'll finish it?
I hope to finish it in September.
Oh,
We're getting ready to shoot, and I think starting the end of next week we can start filming.
that sounds great. And you're
Thank
shooting it on all the same stuff?
No, I'm using a new camera that I got called the Sony MC88.
Mm.
It has a 1 inch sensor, so
Uh,
the image will look better and it'll be a color movie. Still
uh,
1080p, 24p, but
yeah.
it'll look great. I'll make sure it looks great.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of people at home, they're not watching stuff in 4K.
Well,
You
there's
know,
people. Yeah.
like I can't remember the last time I watched anything in 4K on my television or my computer. Like maybe on like on an ultra DVD once in a while.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, but that sounds exciting. Sounds like you got a lot going on. For people, this is a great time for people to be creative too.
Hmm.
As we're all
If they
kind of
can,
locked inside.
if they can, without catching COVID.
Yeah, yeah, which I might have caught yesterday. No.
No. Well, it's a good time to think of alternate strategies. Now,
Yeah.
one good thing about these underground and indie movies that a lot of people may not know about at this point is they were made like Chantal Akerman movies. They were made by a crew, just handful of people or a couple of people or a crew of one in some cases.
Mm.
And that kind of filmmaking, werewolf type filmmaking, and what I'm doing with slow romance, that's what's possible easily now because we don't have a COVID vaccine yet.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But you know what? Make more underground films like this, and you'll get noticed probably.
There we go.
And even if you don't, hey, you're expressing yourself, you're working that muscle, and you're learning how to make films.
Yeah, slow romance is going to be a huge mainstream success. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe it will be. I mean, I certainly will be promoting it. I want to thank you for all the help that you've given me. Sujewa, for the audience that doesn't know, he's like one of the most outgoing, nice guys you'll ever know. Like, this guy will message you all the time just to be nice. And he's such a nice guy. And please check out his movies. If you kind of have an unusual sense of humor like me, you'll really like Ninja Werewolf Philosopher.
Werewolf Ninja
NWP,
Philosopher, yes.
Werewolf Ninja Philosopher. Fuck it. I screwed it up.
Also, I have a website, sujewa.com, sujewa.com, that has all my film stuff on there.
Yes. And all the information for those will be on the description below, folks. Sujewa, thank you so much for coming on. Please check out Werewolf Ninja Philosopher.
You got it.
WNJ. All right.
WNP. Yes.
Yeah, WNP. I did. Man, woman, person, TV, camera.
That's
All right.
And when Slow Romance is done, I'll send it to you. Maybe I can come back on the show after that.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on. And if you want to check out You'll Probably Agree, just type in YPA reviews on the internet. As you can probably guess, YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree. Thanks so much, and we will see you later.